Welcome to the Sales Queen podcast, where we teach women how to turn their skills into sales and monetize their message so they can finally sell with the clarity, confidence, and certainty that they've always wanted to. No longer does the game of sales need to be an old boys club. It's time for you to sell like a queen. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sales Queen podcast. We're super excited to have you listening and watching today. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe so you can get all the future episodes. One that might be the very unlock for you and your business and where you're at in your sales career. Today, I have Justin Falck on. I'm super honored to have you here, brother. We've known each other for over 10 years. We go way back to high school before either of us were entrepreneurs. So, Justin, thanks for being on. I'm excited for you to share your story and all of your success.
Yeah, very happy to be on here and excited to talk about my story. And I love that the name of your podcast is Sales Queen. It's honestly not something that I get asked about a lot, but I've spent probably well over $100,000 on training for and being in masterminds and groups specifically and only for sales. I've spent money on other things as well too, but for only sales, I have as well too. So I love to talk about sales.
Woohoo! I love it. Well, and actually, you guys too, I have to give Justin credit. Justin, do you remember the conversation that we had at your house probably, I don't know, 6-8 months ago when you were like, you need to translate your business into being a business coach? And I sat on it forever. And then you were one of the people that really sparked that conversation. And now here we are. So you get a
Oh,
little bit
that's
of the
so
credit
cool.
for this.
Well, thank you. I'm sure that the idea was already there. I probably just maybe helped pull it out a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. Well, that's why we need each other. We need community. So, okay, well, let's dive in first to kind of your origin story, and go back as far as you want to go. I did know you in high school as the younger brother of who I went to prom with, for everybody listening. But as far back as you want to go, of kind of maybe the initial spark of what made you into the person that you are today, or even thinking about entrepreneurship, however far back you want to go, let's kind of start there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, this story can take a really long time or it can be short. I've practiced my 5-minute version of the hero's journey and the hour long. No, I'm just kidding. But so I'll just kind of get into it and then hopefully it'll just spark some more discussion. Yeah, I mean, really, I think that I've always meant to be an entrepreneur. That's kind of how I was made and formed and shaped, because even starting in school, elementary school, I was constantly getting in trouble. My mom tells the story to this day about, I think it was my second grade teacher, where I will make a great CEO one day because when we had to clean up, I was the one that was telling all the other kids what to do for cleanup. I wasn't actually doing it. And so
Classic.
you're right. I've just always kind of just felt like I haven't fit the classic mold of what society has wanted me to be, starting in school, somewhat my family as well too. You mentioned that you went to prom with my brother. He was all the complete opposite of me. So he cared about grades so much. He cared about studying very, very hard, and he had to kind of fit that mold of what that looked like for me. I felt that I was intelligent, but I didn't need to prove it to anybody. And so I was the type of kid that wouldn't study, but then would get good grades on tests. And I don't know, I just that was kind of the start of things. But I never, up until after college, I never thought that like actually being an entrepreneur would be something I would pursue. I knew that being different was important to me, but starting a business, I think, is so much easier and available now than the thought of it or the encouragement of it was when I was growing up. Because the people that you looked at who started businesses, it's when we were growing up, it was Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs. They're like huge, huge companies,
Yeah.
or it was coding, and I didn't want to get into coding or anything like that. So I think up until after I graduated college, that was never really an idea for me. But um, all throughout college, I kind of just wanted to be different and make sure that I was successful. But I didn't know what that path was. So the only path that I thought was, well, just go get a high paying job. So I graduated with a business management degree. I knew that I could get into some sort of business and then start making my mark from there. My mom's a lawyer and my dad's had a pretty good job as an FDIC at the FDIC. So I just always had these external and internal expectations to do as well, if not better than them. But so I think all of that really drove what turned into entrepreneurship. So when I graduated, had two options. One was it was a sales job, but then the other was a more corporate job and it had a higher salary. So I just took the higher salary route, went with that, and quickly discovered, which I should have foreseen, that I would hate just having an everyday normal job because, even though it was a higher salary, I probably would have enjoyed the sales job a little bit more. I don't know. But even though it was a higher salary, it was very monotonous, and it was show up at the same time every single day. Your lunch is at the same time every day, leave at the same time every day. And I just felt like, what's the point of me? The company I was working for, there was 9,000 employees, and the position that I was in was a manager trainee. And I think that like they probably could have trained us for this position, got us through all the different things, really indoctrinated into the company in 4 months, but the position was meant to last for a year. And so it was just very slow. And I had zero actual impact on the company, or at least it felt that way to me. So I just got really bored. Perfect example. So one of the ways that they wanted to train us was to just get us to be in every position. And so I actually got my best friend from college the same job at the same time. So me and him, we were in the warehouse so they're just like learning the warehouse. Probably could have taken a week, but and maybe this was just like this direct branches management, but they left us in the warehouse for 2 or 3 months. And we quickly like learned everything that happened in the warehouse. We learned all the parts, all of this stuff, because it was an electrical middleman between manufacturers and electricians effectively. So nothing that like I'm interested in whatsoever. But we were able to adapt, like learn all the parts, all that stuff. We did that pretty quickly. But then we spent like the last month and a half pretty much just playing catch with a football in the warehouse. So like, and we're getting paid like decent salaries to do this. And I think that like you could look at that in two different ways. You could be the type of person that's like, okay, cool, this is pretty sweet. I don't have to do anything and I'm getting paid. I'm just going to cruise. For me, I'm like, this is stupid. Yes, I'm getting paid well, but I'm not doing anything. I have no purpose. And like, I didn't just go to school for the last forced to go to school because I didn't even like school, but I didn't just
Yeah.
get forced to go to school for the last, 12 or 16 years to then just come out and like do nothing and have no impact. And like, I just had more drive than that, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I then started spending all of my time a little bit inside that job because I had so much downtime, but most of it outside that job, learning how to make money online, how to just do something else, because I I wasn't the type of person that was going to just quit and then go figure it out. I wanted to have a direct
Mm,
path to see, okay, I can actually make money with my own business or do something else or a side gig or a side hustle. All those words and trends were popping up at this time.
yeah.
But I wanted to prove it. Like I'm the type of person now, and I think I was then, that I can make anything work. Like I'm going to stick with it long enough to make anything work, but I still at least wanted a direct path before I cut ties with the comfortable salary and all of that stuff. So, spent all my time trying to figure out how to make money online, and landed on an opportunity, which is Amazon FBA. At this point, it's pretty popular. But back then, this was 2017. I think it was really kind of just starting. And that entire journey I can talk about for a really long time, but I'll kind of shorten it because it was a smaller piece than where I'm at right now. But
Yeah.
effectively, I went into it. I bought a course, dropped $1,000, which at the time, like I don't think I'd ever spent $1,000 on anything.
Yeah.
Because even when you buy a car, it comes down to like monthly payments. So I don't think I'd ever dropped $1,000 at one time. So I think I went through the entire curriculum in a night or two, and then just started getting to work, decided that the product that I wanted to sell and create a business around was weighted blankets. And then I had a couple partners, well, really just one that ended up going with me, but he wasn't a financial partner. So it was just kind of like, hey, I found this opportunity. You're a buddy of mine. Do you want to do this with me? But but I'll mostly just talk about me because it was really mostly me kind of just driving this the whole way, which again I think speaks to my entrepreneur side of things. Like I will bring people in with me, but I'm usually the one that's like charging the gates with ideas and all that
Mm.
stuff. So
Mhm.
we ended up sending $40,000 to no, we ended up sending $10,000 to China, just wiring it, which was also insane. But that wasn't for a course; that was for actual product. So I felt a little more comfortable doing it. I don't know why, but it worked. Like I didn't get scammed out of it. I actually got the product. It got sent to Amazon, and luckily or faithfully, I was being watched over. It happened to get into to Amazon's warehouse the day before Black Friday. So that $10,000, um, I think there was a little bit of it for advertising and other things, but most of that bought us 200 blankets, which we then sold out of in like 5 days because of Black
Mm.
Friday, the weekend, and Cyber Monday. And we made right around 40,000 profit. I think it was like 36. Sorry, not profit, revenue. So after spending 10 and then making 36 in a weekend, we were able to bring back in profit like 26,000. And yes, it had been like months of researching, figuring it out, all that stuff, but like it sold in a weekend and then that money was deposited into the business bank account. And that
Yeah.
like gave faith that like, okay, so I don't have to start the next Facebook. I don't have to start the next Apple. I don't have to learn how to code. But there is abundant opportunity going on right now in the world to go out on my own and figure out how to be fully in control of my life and where I want to go.
Amen.
And yeah, and so that really opened my eyes to entrepreneurship, and that was like what I've all of this like turmoil I felt like never fitting in with the status quo or the people that I knew. To some degree, it's just like I always wanted something different. This was the answer to that. It's because like it just gives me control. It like channels where my brain goes. Like in school, I was getting in trouble because I couldn't sit still because there were probably certain things that I was taught and I was like, okay, that's interesting. How can I use that for me? How can I use that idea? But now with entrepreneurship, I can channel that. I can channel that into late nights, staying up till 2 a.m. because I know it's going to benefit and it's going to benefit me and my future family and all this stuff. And so it just fit. Like it just felt like that's like what I was made for.
Yeah.
Um so then from there we you know, with anything, it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows for the rest of your life. Like if that's one thing I can tell people that are listening about entrepreneurship is that as much as we all hope and wish that it would, it's not. But ultimately, I think that's a great thing because it takes, for me, it took my initial interest, which was just to make money and be in control. That's like all I desired at that time. But through growing and the things that I've overcome and continued to do, my vision for my why is so much bigger now.
Mm.
At this point, like our company does 3 million a year. We have had a team of 20 in the past. We're at about 11 right now because we just went through a season of pruning. But I have so much more passion for the team, like my team, and our clients. I have a huge passion for our clients as well too. But for me personally, this is why I think my business partner and I are such a good fit. For him, he gets so much passion about teaching and speaking to the clients. Like he's uh, like a young Tony Robbins is what I'm going to call him. Like that's where he gets his passion. But for me, I like the fact that like we had someone that came and worked for us. He was my first employee and he was working like 80-hour work weeks and making like 50K a year and just hating his life. And I was able to take him on and freed up his time. He could work from anywhere. He still continued to work with me in person, but he could work from anywhere. He
Yep.
could work the hours that he wants as long as he's getting the stuff done. And he made more money coming and working for me. And so I was able
Mm.
to use the opportunity that I had created that initially was just for myself, and that created an opportunity for somebody else to make their life better. And that
Yeah.
really got me hooked on like what my vision is now. And I think that um so anyway, so to loop that back, having your initial entrepreneurship journey not be perfect will often grow you and put you on the path that you're really meant for, that you probably didn't see in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, so with things not going great, Amazon got a little bit more competitive. People started seeing that weighted blankets were a good product. So if you're not on page one for Amazon, you pretty much you're fighting an uphill battle. So we got knocked off of page one because a lot of competition arose. It was kind of becoming a race to the bottom with price. People were undercutting in price, and I didn't want to do that. So we learned how to. Me and my fiance at the time, my now wife, she I don't know if I tasked her to do this or she chose to do it, but she learned how to build websites, and she ended up being really, really amazing and talented graphic designer.
Yeah.
So we created our own website, and then uh, I say this all the time: when you create a website for the first time, it's not like the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. You have to learn how to actually drive traffic to it. And so I
Yes.
dove into the world of paid ads. That's the route I wanted to go. There's a couple different routes. People could go with influencer marketing. They could go with just posting on Instagram and becoming like the content person. For me, paid ads really felt like where I want to spend my time, because I love the idea of having a lever where if I could spend $1 and it ends up making 2, 3, 4, or 5, I know that no matter how much somebody like resonated with me personally or my personality, like I could just control my business. And so I just wanted to dive down that channel of getting traffic. So really deep dived into that, started learning Facebook ads, started learning Google ads, started learning YouTube ads. And then we continued to run the online store for a little while, but we saw a bigger opportunity. And that opportunity was helping other businesses run their own ads, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Google ads. And so me and Kelsey, we started a digital marketing agency. This is so long ago, and this story goes. This could take forever. 'Cause right now we're at like 2018, and you and I are talking now, and it's 2023. So, I'm gonna try and like keep the highlights here. But we started our own digital marketing agency, and I was really good at running the ads, but at that time I wasn't good at sales. So here's where our sales kind of comes in. Um, one of the another course I had bought on kind of just like a business model and structure for an advertising agency. Another member of that coaching program had reached out to the the guru, if you will, the person that was like teaching the course, and he was like, "Hey, I went and got 10 clients, but I don't really understand your training on how to run ads for them." So he went and got clients, but he didn't know how to fulfill it. So the person who had created the program partnered him up with me because I was really excited about the ads. I had done it for my own business and was excited to do that for other people, but I didn't like cold calling. I didn't like the fact that we had to go up to a business and like convince them to trust us and all that stuff. It just like it's to be honest, it scared the crap out of me. Um, so we had me on our own. Kelsey and I had gotten two clients. One was an esthetician and one was a dentist. But we got partnered with this other person, and he had gotten 10 clients in St. Louis. And he's like, "Hey, I'll split them with you." I sold them on the idea of Facebook ads, but I have no idea how to fulfill it. If you want to just come do the ads, I was like, "Yes, that's my dream job. Like you get us clients, and I'll just run the ads. I can stay behind the computer. I can just hang out in my office and make money doing what I like." So we did that, and probably ran that for about 3 or 4 months, and then we started to realize that the best people that we were able to get results for were insurance agents, and that's for two reasons. Back when I was in college, I worked for Northwestern Mutual and sold insurance, so I understood the insurance agent, but I also understood who they were selling to. And then this partner in St. Louis, he also had his own PNC insurance agency, so he understood insurance as well too. And that was just a coincidence, but we both understood it really well, and we were able to just crush it for any clients that we had that were insurance agents. So um, at that point, I went and really just kind of dialed in, focusing on insurance agents. We went kind of two routes with that business. With the partner I had, we ended up creating a lead company, and we scaled that. So that was where we would just create leads on our own and then sell the leads uh, at like a certain amount. And we got up to the point where we were generating 5,000 leads a week with that. And that was pretty scaled up. And then the second side of things, I just did myself, where I worked with a few select agents to create, to run their ads, to create advertising for them, basically to have them have their advertising in house. And it came to a point where I had to decide, okay, what route do I want to go? I really had three choices. Do I want to stay on the lead side, which I really kind of fundamentally started to disagree with, because the business model just didn't make sense to me. And the profit wasn't great there. The revenue was great, but the profit wasn't great there. But the model didn't make sense because we wanted to sell the leads for as much profit as possible, meaning that we had to sell them for as high as we could sell them, but we had to generate them for as low as we could generate them. And so our model didn't align with the insurance agents, because when you try and generate a lead for as low as the cost as you can, the quality is not great. And so they're wanting great quality. They're wanting to pay less for leads. We're wanting to sell the leads for more and then also generate them. I just didn't agree with the business model long term. I thought that there was a better way. So then I really had to choose, okay, do I build out my own complete digital marketing agency where we're going to do it for people, or do, with that comes hiring talent. I'm going to hire media buyers. I'm going to have to hire sales people. I'm going to have to hire a lot. And at that point, I didn't know how to hire. I didn't know how to hire a team. I didn't really know how to do much except run ads really, really well. Or the other option I could do, which I believed in more, is just teach the insurance agents how to do it, because then they're using their stories, their experiences. They have full control. It's just brought in house, which ultimately, like when I had done that for my weighted blanket business, and when I had seen, I just fully believe that that's the best way to do it, because there's just so many reasons as to why. So I decided to go down that route of teaching insurance agents how to do it. And that created the company that we have now, which is now called Insurance Advertising Masters, which started right at the beginning. I think like February is when I technically incorporated it, February of 2019. And it's now almost May of 2023. And we've been running this thing for that long. So to tie this into sales and to kind of wrap up my origin story, I started out because I didn't like sales. I started out with a more of an e-commerce type product where I took everything I knew how to teach an insurance agent, how to bring marketing in-house, to run Facebook ads. Um, and I put it into a course. And then initially we sold it for 1,000, and then eventually changed it up to monthly, where it was 200 upfront and then $100 a month. And I had created a video, which was not quite a full webinar, because in my opinion, webinars are about an hour. This was about a 15-minute video, just selling them. So I knew how to sell from video. I just didn't like the one-on-one interaction at the time. And then as soon as they watched the video, they could go to a sales page and check out. And that was great. So I did that for a year and was able to build my income up like 5 times more than I was at the salary job. Like I was making pretty good money. Well, I'll just tell you, I already said that we did 3 million last year. So I scaled my income up to 20K a month, and I was super happy doing that. But ultimately it was just me, and it wasn't about money anymore. It kind of felt like, okay, we're at this point. I've been doing this for a year. What's the next level? Because I didn't want to just stop. I didn't want to just live on that and pretty much feel retired. I honestly don't think that I could ever retire. I think that I would have too much going on in my brain to actually
Same.
ever retire. So at this point, it's just like leveraging myself out of different things, just
Yeah.
continuing to get higher leverage and create other opportunity for other people. But I had seen in the market that from the courses, consulting, coaching, all that like market group together, I'd really seen that it was going towards the high ticket space. And I was like, all right, well, that's the next thing. And it would allow me to spend my time a little bit more hands on with these agents and deliver them a better experience. Um, so that was the route that I went. I was like, okay, I know I need to make, and I had a few mentors that were telling me that, like, no matter what, you need to do this because it's
Yeah.
going to take your income from 20 to 100, to 200. Like the mentors that I was lucky enough to have in my life were doing $1 million months. So I wouldn't recommend ever having, like, I would probably wouldn't directly pay somebody that is that much higher ahead of you, because oftentimes it's hard to get to extract value from somebody that's that much higher. But I had
Mm,
just known them from some events that we went to, and so they were more of a friend than anything. It wasn't like they were hands-on coaching me every aspect of the business. They were just kind of giving me some insights into what they were doing. But he was like, yeah, you gotta have a high ticket product. Doesn't mean you need to get rid of what you're doing right now, but you need to create that. um so I did that, and then I so this was probably about after a year. I created this, and I thought that I would be able to sell it. So I there was like a little tiny sales section of a course that I had bought in before. I got my script, and I went, and at this point when we first launched it, it was $5,800. And I think I sold in about 8 people. Um, and this would have been October of 2020, I think. Um, I had sold in a few people, and so, like, I had generated, I don't know, 20 to $30,000, and I was feeling really good about that. I was like, okay, maybe I am good at sales. And then I was like, all right, so in order to scale this, let's get some paid ads going. I need to get some more calendar appointments on my calendar. The first people I had sold in, everything's a learning lesson, right? The first people I had sold in, they were warm. They had been following me from my YouTube channel for 2 years. I had just made like a post. It's like, hey, I have this new program, book a time. And I think like maybe 20 people signed up, and I sold 8 out of the 20. So it was pretty good, but they were very warm people. Then when I
yep.
started doing Facebook ads, I generated, I don't know how, it must have been 30, because I went 0 for 30. So I generated this was now January of 2021, I believe. It was either December 20 or January of 2021. Um, and yeah, I generated inbound booked appointments. So these were still like pretty quality. They had gone through, watched my entire VSL, which I think it's the VSL that we just stopped now. So that thing ran for 3 years. Um,
Awesome.
but I make them sit through with this VSL, which I study so much on the marketing side, especially at this point up until then compared to sales. But I think I had done a really well. I guess I had done a really well job on the VSL, because at this point it's generated probably about 5.5 million. But I spent a ton of time writing it, and because I didn't want to be the salesperson, I wanted to be the marketer. So I wanted the video to do the entire job, and then I would get on and basically just order take at 5,800. But it's not how it happened, to be honest. I booked 30 appointments. I went 0 for 30. I was like, "Ugh, my business is over. This sucks. Like, I'm not going to be able to succeed. I don't know anything about sales." And then as it happened, I'm sure I've been targeted for years and years and years for sales training, but because I was in pain because of sales, an ad came across my Facebook feed about sales, and it came from a guy named Cole Gordon, who's really really blowing up these days. And this was early on in his program. I think he had only started his program 6 months prior.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so I got on a call with them. They sold me into their program to teach me how to do sales, and it completely changed my life. And so, through him and a few other, I've just continued to be in his mastermind, and his mastermind at this point is 68,000 a year. But there's so much value I get out of that. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time and money in sales, and that helped me a ton. So then the next month, I think I went 20% on calls, and then as I continued to get better, I was consistently closing 40% of calls that came through from cold traffic through the webinar, all of that stuff. And that
Awesome.
was March of 21. And then for me, it was like, okay, my vision is a bigger company to be able to get more team. I had that one employee that I talked about. I had, from what I could tell, changed his life. He was happier. He was able to, I think at that point no, not yet, but eventually he moved to California. But I just like had this feeling that, okay, this company at this point is bigger than me. I still have energy to continue to pour into it. So I know that I'm not meant to just sit here and do these low ticket things, or even just me be the bottleneck to where I'm selling each person. Because at the end of the day, I probably could energy wise only take 4 to 5 calls. I'm kind of an introvert. I don't know. I'm introvert and extrovert. I don't know which one I am first, but sales calls absolutely drain me, even once I got good at sales. So I was like, all right, how do I turn this into more of a machine? So we hired our first sales rep. He came on. He did well at sales, but ultimately he wasn't a culture fit. Um, he decided that, he would cancel the calls based on, he would read the applications. He's like, this person's not a good fit. I'm just going to cancel it. And I was like, okay, well, I paid good amount of money for each of these calls, so your job is to like get on the anyway, he just long term wasn't a culture fit. But then the next person we found ended up crushing it, and then we built a team. So my duties and journey went from awful at sales, knowing nothing about sales, being scared to talk to people, to then investing in training, getting good at sales, closing at 20, getting up to closing at 40% myself. Then the next leverage point, which I talked about earlier, this is like what I'm constantly trying to optimize for, is how do I leverage myself out of what I'm doing to continue to do less, but impact more. So
Yep.
then the next lever for that was, okay, we got a sales team. So now I need to pour into my sales team. So I did that I got off calls at that point, and then I probably went a full year where I was sales manager, doing daily meetings Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. for an hour, daily meetings, training with these guys, doing call reviews, role plays, all of that stuff, because that was the highest leverage activity. If I could get them to and maintain their close rate at 30%, then it meant a lot of revenue for the business. It meant that we could hire other people on the fulfillment side to help with the clients. It meant that we could grow. So that was my highest leverage activity. So I went from bad at sales, scared of sales, to then good at sales, to then sales manager. And then I even got to the point where I not recruited, I promoted one of our closers to then he became sales manager. So then I got even more leverage. And at that point, this was prior to partnering with my current business partner, which brought he and I way back more into the business now than ever, which is where we are right now, and a lot of pruning. But prior to that, I got to the point where my highest leverage activity was, we're just going to make content, because I had the sales manager and he would take care of the team. He would pour into them. He would hire new ones. If we had to cut people, he would do that. And so if I could just make content at that point, which again, I still think is sales to some degree, because you're
Yep.
really using content to express your vision to the market and attract them in. I really think that marketing and sales and copy is all the same thing. It's just the delivery of it is the
Yep.
difference.
Yep.
So yeah, that took us to August of last year. And yeah, we finished up 2022 doing just over 3 million. And then me and my current business partner came together, and we've been doing a lot of pruning, because now at this point, the most important thing to us is our new mission, which is we call it the and agent, or the and entrepreneur. Um, we're really passionate about going against the grind mentality for
Yep.
people that have gotten to the point where they're making money. The reason we're very passionate about that is because he and I are both people of faith. He's got 3 kids. I've got 1, and another one coming in probably 2 weeks. Both married. Like that's our life, right? Faith and family is our number one priority. We've already gone through the grind to make the money to feed them, to get them pretty much everything that they could ever need.
Yep.
So when we first came together, we kind of let drive or money or whatever it may be become a shiny object to us. And we were like, okay, we're we're doing this. Why don't we go to this level? And it was a crazy, we wanted to go to 1 million a month, but we didn't know why. The only reason we
Yeah.
wanted to do it is because other people had done it.
Yep.
And and I probably still do, and I'm trying to cut this tie, but I tied my self-worth to how much money we make, how much we can do in comparison to other people. And for a few months while we were really trying to go for it, we were back in working 60, 80 hours a week and neglecting to some degree, not crazily, but neglecting our kids, our wives. And we stepped back and we were like, what in the world? Like, why did we do that? Um,
Mm.
so now, like, luckily, we learned that lesson in 2 months rather than 10 years. But now we're like, okay, there's so much grind and hustle culture out there, which I think is good for people that are really trying to hit escape velocity, quit their
Yeah.
job, like create an impact for themselves. But for the people that have met their needs and they can get food on the table, they can go on vacation, they could send their kids to a private school if they want, they could, have their spouse not have to work. Once you get there, it's not about going to the next level and neglecting all of that stuff. It's about, and how do you have a successful business and have the time to do the things that you love? How do you make a
Yep.
lot of money and not neglect or sacrifice all the things that are important to you on the journey of doing that? So we call that, for the insurance agents, we call that the and agent model, but I think it applies to all entrepreneurs, just being like an and entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So it takes
Yeah.
us to where we are right now.
Amazing. Great job. The 35-minute version of that, which is right in the middle, is perfect.
Yeah.
Well, you know that Landon and I are totally behind that. You were at the launch of CYP last week, Christian Young Professionals, which is awesome. And I think it's really cool. One thing that I've talked about actually a lot on these episodes with people that are now entering into their 30s. I just turned 30. I know you're almost 30 in a year or two. There's something I think that has changed in a lot of us, because if you look at the exponential growth of even the internet marketing world, like you said, when we even first started our businesses, like and certainly me too, is a couple years ahead. It like wasn't, it still wasn't just the thing that you even really thought of. I didn't know what an entrepreneur even was till I was 23. Like, if you would have asked me, I would have been like, you go to get a business degree, your dad's I literally just didn't know. And now it's like every kid's on TikTok, every kid wants to be an influencer or a YouTuber, which is amazing. And our kids will probably be starting businesses at 10, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think has changed is that, let's say even 5 or 10 years ago, when it was like you said, Gary Vee and maybe Ty Lopez, and it was like post with the Lamborghini or be yelling at the screen 24/7, hustle, hustle, hustle. Well, now it's been 10 years and we're married and we have kids, and we're like, dang it, this kind of sucks. Like,
Yeah.
what I love that you said, Justin, that I want to dive a little bit deeper on, is that you found out that you were an entrepreneur, which I kind of gleaned from what you were saying, is that when you heard something, your first instinct was, how do I take action on that?
Yeah.
And I actually think that that's really profound. And that I don't know if anybody's ever said that before, where it's like, hey, maybe if you're listening or you're watching this podcast and you're like, am I an alien? Is there something wrong with me? Because you sit there and you immediately have that gut impulse, or maybe a little bit of ADHD, where you're like, why is no one else excited about this? Why is no one else antsy? Like, aren't we going to apply this? Or the
Yeah.
leader that is the one directing everybody else to do the chores or to do the thing. I think that's actually really profound. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, in terms of like encouraging other people of maybe things about them that and even what they can do. And I don't know if it's like, hey, 0 to 25K, you are in that hustle phase because you're providing your needs, or maybe you're not married yet and you can grind 100 hours. That's what I did, 100%, because I wanted to, because I was infused with my why, and I was like, there are people out there that need me, and I'm figuring this crap out. I might as well do it now. Even now, before Landon and I have children in the future, I'm like, bye working till 10 because I can. And I know that
Mhm.
things are going to change once we have kids. So tell us a little bit more about kind of like that process of what that was like for even you, or maybe you and Kelsey, when you were in that grind phase, and then kind of how people can segment, like maybe what phase of life they're in,
Yeah.
and letting their why and their mission lead them for the season of life that they're in.
Yeah. So my business partner, Josh Lustig, came up with a really, really cool model that we use it for the insurance world, but I think it could be used for everything. Um, so I think that that's relevant to kind of go through here. Real quick though, you mentioned that, somebody listening could be like, I'm different. I'm an alien for these thoughts. But another area as well too is if you have kids that you have a teacher that has said that, your kid is poorly behaved or they have ADHD or anything like that. That was me. And I wish that there was somebody like me that could tell my mom back then that, like, yeah, he's getting in trouble. Yeah, he doesn't sit still. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But guess what? It's going to lead to this amazing thing. And
Yeah.
it would have just given her, I don't know that it would have changed my path or trajectory or the school I was in or anything like that. And I honestly, like, I don't wish that it would, because I don't know if it would have made me who I was if they changed anything else. Because it was the adversity that I went through that really caused me to, it just causes caused and causes me to continue to push and drive and drive and drive.
Yeah.
But I think if it can do anything, it can give parents just peace. It's like, look,
Mm.
my kid is gonna be fine, even if they have ADD, even if they have, if they don't sit still, if they're just a little bit different. Like, it doesn't necessarily, like, if there's an opportunity to change their school or something like that, that's great. But if it just gives you peace, that's kind of the message that I want to share.
Yeah.
So yeah, this model that we're super excited about, we want to come up with like a better name for it, but it's just kind of like the 5 stages of insurance, or the 5 stages of being an entrepreneur. And the first one is creating freedom. So
Mm.
typically 1 and 2, you can kind of fall into 1 and 2 and they kind of like go back and forth. But one is creating freedom, because most people will go and start a job and they need to create freedom from that. And so it's whatever you're deciding to do to then start your own business. So it's pretty much like whatever amount of money you need to make in order to quit your job. That's the first step. The second stage is, you could start this from starting a business. So say you don't have a job and you're just going into starting a business, you'd probably just start in stage 2, but it's going for 6 figures. It's going for that first amount of money that's going to take care of your needs and get everything just so that you have comfort. So stage 1 and 2, that's where the grind and hustle mentality is needed. It's not that it's just good, it's actually needed. And so
Mm.
in an ideal world, you would make it easy on yourself. You would realize that you're in stage 1 or 2. Maybe don't have huge rent, huge car payments, things like that, because you need to dig yourself out of the hole in order to get momentum. But sometimes people don't have that luxury. Sometimes people want to start a business once they already have a mortgage, they have 2 car payments, they have 3 kids in daycare. And guess what? Your hole is a lot deeper than somebody starting out down here. But that doesn't mean that you have the excuse to say that you don't have to work hard. You actually have to work
Mm.
harder. And that
Yep.
is a time where sacrifice is important. And I'm not gonna say go sacrifice the things that are important, that are actually important in life. Don't sacrifice your faith. Don't sacrifice your marriage. Don't sacrifice being a parent. But you probably are going to have to sacrifice TV time. You probably are going to have to sacrifice maybe a little bit of the amount of time that you're spending with your wife and kids, just to some degree. Maybe it's, there's so many other things, right? So cut out what's least important first. And then if you have to take a season, right? Don't let this become a lifetime. But if you have to
Yeah.
take a season where you know that you're going to be working late hours, you know that it may put a little bit of tension on, you as a husband or you as a parent, just a little bit. Don't let it get out of hand. But because you need to grind and hustle in stage 1 and 2 to get out of it. There's
Yeah.
no way around that. I can't express enough that there's no course you're going to buy, no matter how well it's positioned. It may save you time. It may save you. It may give you leverage. It may make it so that you don't have to work hard for as long. But there's no substitute to hard work in stages 1 and 2.
Agreed.
So stage 3 though is where you've met your needs. Okay. And we need to switch our focus, because you just came out of stage 1 and 2 where you've been in that grind mode. You've been in that sacrifice mode. Okay. Stage 3 is needs are met, and we're just trying to double that. So that's creating abundance. So that's different for every person. That could be 5K for some person, that could be 30K for another person. So whatever that number is that you've met your needs, your payments are all covered and you're comfortable. The next step in stage 3 is we're just trying to double that. And that still takes hard work because oftentimes it's going to be tweaking the model that got you to this point. So what typically gets you to 6 figures is not going to be what's going to get you to 7 figures. And what got you to comfort is not going to be what got you to abundance. So don't sacrifice the same level that you did before. Start to enjoy your life, but you may need to implement and change the structure of your business model to create more leverage. How I did, I went from being the salesperson to having salespeople. That's great leverage. That was not easy. That
Mm-hmm.
does not mean, just because I have leverage does not mean that it was easy. I still had to, there were many salespeople that we brought on that didn't work. So I had to do uncomfortable things. I had to fire people. I had to listen to call reviews 8 hours a day. So no, I wasn't on there doing the calls, but I was listening to their calls. So
Yeah.
there's going to be a tweak in the model at stage 3, and it still requires hard work, but it's going to allow you to scale things that are fun rather than scaling things that are awful, and then you end up creating a pit and a trap for yourself.
Yep.
That's stage 3. And then stage 4 is creating time freedom. It's where you start to really replace yourself. You create systems. You leverage A+ talent, systems, and processes to start to really buy back your time. And that's when that's what we need to do at that point. Like, you've worked hard for the last 3 stages. You've tweaked your model to now a scalable model. And now we just need to learn to delegate. We need to delegate and create processes so that it can be replicated over and over and over again. And you continue to pull yourself out and leverage yourself up to higher leverage activities. And then stage 5 is just more. But the thing is, you don't want to do more in scale when you haven't laid a solid rock foundation, right? You don't want to have your house built on sand. You want it to be built on solid rock. And that's why you don't just do more. Oftentimes people think that, if they're still on the phones, okay, I'm going to go from 4 calls or 5 calls a day. That's already pretty draining. The way I'm going to scale is to do 10 calls a day. No, you'll break. So we
Yep.
don't want to do more in scale until we have 4 in place, systems in place. You actually have time to spend doing the things that you love with your family, with like going to helping at the church, like whatever's important to you. Like that needs to be in place in stage 4 before you start scaling, or you're going to scale an awful lifestyle.
Yep. Not to mention one thing too that I've learned that I would love your thoughts on is I know I protect my thinking time more than ever now. Now
Yeah.
that I've gotten, out of the first couple phases, like my thinking time is what drives the business forward. If I, when I have time to think of systems, think of adjustments, think of how I want to lead my team differently, think
Yeah.
of, really like the 80% of the mindset side of what do I think my clients need right now? What does my team need right now? And then the 20% of actual execution. Like that strategy, and one brilliant thing that one of my friends actually said at a mastermind that I was a part of is when I was working on I remember the first time I was going to charge 25K for something, and I was starting Sales Queen, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've only charged this much. And she looks at me and she was like, remember, people pay for your strategy, people pay for your brain. You have
Yeah.
been doing this for 10 years, and how much you've invested in yourself, how many webinars you've sat under, how many coaching sessions. She's like, people pay for that. It's not just the course, it's your ability to create ideas.
Yeah.
And it was an unlock where I was like, okay, no turning back. And I'm pretty sure I sold like a 60K deal like the next week or something that I just made up on the spot on a sales call. And I was like, yeah, that's right. So what was kind of that moment for you, or have you had key moments where you were like, man, I just leveled up in your leadership that helped you, jump through those different levels?
Yeah. I would say that all of mine come from when my business revenue has leveled up. It's given me the courage to kind of sit back and think that, like, okay, I actually have learned a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm part of Strategic Coach, and Dan Sullivan. One of his concepts is like the gap in the gain. So you can live in the gap where you basically feel like no matter how much you've achieved, you're never reaching your ideal situation because your ideal is a moving target. So you can live in that gap of like, oh, I'm never good enough. I'm constantly not hitting where I want to be because it's a moving target. Or you can live in the gain, which is how far you've come from where you started. Which
Mm.
it's all just about like what you think about, but it makes makes your life a lot happier when you sit back and you look at it from how much you've gained compared to, you're still not at where you want to be, which you never will because that's a moving target. So, with that being the case, I brought that up because um, I think what happens is, so for me, I did a video last year, 2 years ago, talking about when my business revenue jumps, because I think a lot of younger entrepreneurs think it's linear, and
Yeah.
it's not linear.
Yeah.
It's oftentimes going to go like this, and then as soon as it goes down, you'll get a way bigger jump, and then it goes up and down right here, and then a way bigger jump. So for me, each time my revenue jumped, it's because I did something that tweaks the
Mm,
model, right? So it was okay, low ticket to high ticket, jump. Justin on calls to now sales team, jump. Justin managing and spending time managing the sales team, hiring a sales manager so Justin can focus only on content, jump.
mm,
So every time that I've had my own jump, it's then given me confidence in how much I'm going to charge too, because it's like I've now done the thing. And I sat back and I thought, like, okay, it's always weird to like kind of sit and think like where you're at because um just I don't know. I don't know many people that hopefully are never like sitting there being like, "Oh, my business does a million. I'm so great." Like that's just from the people that I've talked to in my own experiences. Like you're just in it day to day. You don't really ever like sit back and think about like what's been accomplished unless you intentionally do it.
yep.
I'm sure there are people out there that just think that they're, God's gift to earth, and they think that uh they're amazing, and nobody is worth their time. But for most entrepreneurs that I've met that are really successful, they're just so in the day to day that they don't ever think about like, what they've done or how much they've learned, or the fact that
Yeah.
like, okay, you've put 50,000 into training. Oh, you actually implemented that. Now you've learned it. Like your brain, your time, all that stuff actually
Yeah.
is worth more than when you started the business. And
Yeah.
so I think that that's been it for me. It's like taking those times to evaluate, well, how am I different from when I started? Okay, what was it that I did or implemented or learned that got me there? And each one of those things has then given me the confidence on the other side to then charge more for my time, charge more for my program, and just raise prices because what I learn from me personally, I directly pour into my clients with that stuff. And so then I'm seeing my jumps, but I'm also seeing their jumps as well too.
Yeah, 100%. Couple more things I wanted to hit before we were done here. So one thing that um I know that a lot of females deal with it, but men too, is like this concept of courage. Like I think that there's a lot of for women who are primarily the secondary providers in their family, right? Like I have a lot of females that are like the money that I make, my husband and I have decided is our fun money, but the husband's money is going to be, whatever. And then of course there are other people that they're a single mom or they're, not married and they're like it's just me, baby. But I think with the way that women are raised, and I know in my world, being raised middle class and then being raised in an environment where I never saw wealth, and then just being a female on top of that, we're not taught like the concept of providing or the concept of making a lot of money. There are a lot of barriers that come there. So how that translates to a business concept that's very interesting that I want you to speak on is, and something that I'm still breaking too, is like the courage to spend money on ads, the courage to do something, and what if it doesn't work? Like, but specifically when women have to start paying into ads to trust that they're going to reap a benefit. Maybe you can speak to that a bit of like what you've done to foster that courage. And then also like when you spent money on ads for the first time, and then when you're spending thousands of dollars a day, like what was the mental like brain work where you really had the courage to do that, even if it didn't work, and you had to keep making adjustments. That's scary.
Yeah. This is one of those things that like I don't think I have a really great answer because I think God's just blessed me with this feeling with money that I don't need it. Like everything can go away today and I
Mm,
know that I'm taken care of no matter what. Um I don't know how to explain or why to explain that that's been my case. So I don't know how to tactically tell somebody how to get to that point. But I can
mm,
give you my beliefs on money. And I think it comes from just how I was made, and I have so much pain around being normal. Like, I don't want to be normal. I don't want to be like everybody else. And so I have way more desire to not be that than I have tied to any amount of money. So the first time when
Mm.
I spent $1,000 on a course, like, it was the first time I did it, but I still just dropped it. Um, then spending 10,000 sending it to China, and then you know spending money on ads. Ads is a little bit easier because you can spend money and then you're getting a lead back, and then the lead, you get 10 leads or so. You can see if they watch the video, see if they automatic book. But even if you didn't, you can go call them and see if the quality's there. So it's not as scary for ads, in my opinion, because you have all these check marks. It's not like you spend $10,000 and have zero green lights telling you to continue to spend it. Like, you're looking for green lights before you even spend 500. You
Yeah.
like, so ads is a little bit different, but still, like, we got to the point where we were spending 4,000 a day, 120,000 a month. Um, the reason that I can do all that stuff is because I would rather lose all that money than go back to just being a normal person.
Hmm.
Like, yeah. So I can't, I have a way higher attachment to doing what I feel like I've been called to do than money.
Hmm. Very interesting. I think sometimes it's that simple though, and female and male brains work very differently where we have a harder time compartmentalizing things. So, and not that like either is an excuse or a blessing or whatever. I think it's just there's something in you as an entrepreneur where you have to have a shorter time period. Like Mel Robbins calls it the 5 second rule. And she's like, you have 5 seconds to count down and then you have to take an action. And I
Mhm.
think that, as you level up as an entrepreneur, you really do have to like almost beat that insecurity out of yourself where you're just like, do it now, do it now, do it now, figure it
Yeah.
out. And I know that I've had to get just like quicker and to take my emotions out of it and just be like, well, it's not going to do anything sitting here and doing nothing. So you better try it, get data.
Right.
And I
Like,
think
what's the
too,
what I take myself through these. I think my brain just, like, does this in seconds, so I don't
yeah,
really actually spend a ton of time analyzing it. But I have talked to other people about this before, but, like, okay, what's the worst thing that'll happen?
yeah,
You lose the money. And, being an entrepreneur, you might have to work a little bit harder, but you're gonna get it back.
yeah. Yeah. And one thing I've learned too is that like over the years and I'm you and I are a similar Enneagram type, but like I have a strong wing 7 which is like I love to ride the highs of like when I'm really happy, I like love to have fun. I love to like just like be in that
Yeah.
wing zone. But then with that I also learned that after that I'd have a really low after that, and that would be really, really hard for me. So one of the pieces of wisdom that I've gleaned from my mentors too is that like, and I think just wisdom is now when I'll have, I had 100K day like a couple of weeks ago. And it was funny because I was super excited. And of course, my husband and I went to dinner. It was great. But also I was like, yeah, I'm good at sales, And it was
Yeah.
like, and I was like, wow, I wonder what would happen if I had 10 sales calls in a day, whatever. And it was cool because I think that there needs to be a certain level of like detaching money from your identity too, where
Yeah.
you're just like, yeah, my worth of what I believe that God's called me to is in alignment with this result. This is cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know, have you had any moments like that in your life where yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, 100%. Massively. Like, I used to look at my Stripe account because prior to me doing sales, it was all e-com. So as soon as, like,
Yeah.
somebody would just buy buy the program, I would get a Stripe notification. And then once I had a sales team, I would look at Stripe, and I would have awful days if a sale didn't come through. And
Yeah.
that really, like, it's something I still struggle with, and it's something that, like, I think more than anything else, that's what I'm working on
Yeah.
with, like, just like when I'm praying or anything, is that my identity is not tied to money. It's not tied to my success. Like, it's
Yep.
just continuing to know the truth that, like, I'm valuable in my parents' eyes, I'm valuable in God's eyes, I'm valuable in my wife's eyes. And this is how you can really, really get it to cement, is when you have a child that doesn't even know how to speak, that and you ask yourself the question, do they love you anymore because you made $100,000 today?
Mm.
No, they don't even know. And so like that's something that I got asked a couple of weeks ago, and that like really rocked me. So I've been really trying to I've been really trying to detach my identity from that um so that it doesn't like affect my life. But one thing that I recognized it early on, and so I stopped allowing myself to look at Stripe. So it's really hard to do when you're taking sales calls because you're the one generating the revenue, which is why I think for people like us, it probably is very beneficial to get off of being the bottleneck to revenue as soon as you possibly can.
Yep.
Because when you have a personality like that, you can take it into sales calls as well too. Your ups and downs, which is good for when they're up because then you go into the next one with a lot of momentum. But for salespeople, you really need to be even keel.
Yep.
But yeah, like when I had my first closers, team of two, and I was sales manager, I would have bad days. So I literally just shut off all notifications to Slack and to Stripe, and I wouldn't look at it, and I would have good days all day. Like
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
just wouldn't be affected by it. So
Yeah.
I think it's about recognizing it and as much as you can, trying to just not even allow it to show,
Yeah.
because that's easier than working on the full self-identity thing, which still needs to be addressed, but that's a much longer journey than just
Yeah.
shutting it off.
Yeah, and we're not saying don't track your KPIs, people. You still need to
No,
know your
yes,
KPIs.
yes,
But
definitely.
because that's another ditch that people get into and they're just like, "Ah, la, 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 la." They don't see
No,
anything,
yeah,
and I'm like,
you can't be blissfully ignorant when you're running a business, but,
yeah,
I think I still checked it, but I would check it, like, the night and just, like, not in the morning or just, like, not constantly. So,
yeah, yeah. Well, last question I wanna ask, thank you for all of your insights today. I know people are gonna glean a ton of wisdom from this. One thing I just wanted you to speak to, because I think, we kind of gloss over this sometimes as Christians, we use words like calling and my big why and purpose, and I think a lot of people, are at different places of their journey with that. Some people listening to this are like, in the corporate grind. I've talked to probably 5 people this week that are like, my number one goal this year is to figure out my purpose. I think we take that for granted sometimes, us, where we're like, I know my purpose, like I'm walking in my purpose and the peace that comes from that. So maybe you can speak to a little bit even more on the spiritual side of like how you discovered your purpose, and even I want you to share just very very briefly a little bit of your spiritual transformation, because I got to see a long road of that, and kind of who that's made you into today, because I know if you would have asked yourself 10 years ago if you would have been the person standing here today, it was a completely different person.
yeah.
So whatever you're comfortable sharing of kind of that transformation and that journey, and then just encouraging people in their purpose, I think that'd be a great note to end on.
Yeah, so I'll start with the journey. So I grew up Catholic, and then, through, honestly, influence of people that were friends of mine, that just didn't believe in God or thought they were too smart to believe in God, I just decided to denounce my faith, and I think there were even a few times that I said I was atheist, even though I don't think I fully believed that ever, um, for like 10 years. And so probably from like when I was 12 until I was 12 or 13 until I was 20, 24, 25, whenever it was, and I started coming back to my city. Um, but I think that the thing that brought me back was, one, my wife. She knew that faith was important, and she drugged me to church, and then I just started going because I loved her and I was going to do what made her happy. But at first I was resistant. I was like, I don't have to believe this to go. I don't have to. I'll just sit there and be quiet and be friendly. And then, I got into a lawsuit with a previous partner that made it so I couldn't produce income. This was a big chunk of 2019. Um, and that was also when I was going to church every day, and I just like it's there's been so many times recently. Um, it's I forget exactly where it is. It's like the fourth or fifth or sixth book of the Bible. I think it's Gideon maybe, but when he's going into to battle, and God continues to tell him, no, you have like 10,000, bring it down to 3,000. Okay, it's 3,000, bring it down to 300. And God is continuing to make it impossible for anyone, like any of them and anyone looking, to think that it was anything but God that made the change. And so I got put in that place. I had no ability to produce income. I had there's so many things happen where I was like, I can't do this on my own. As much as I'm continuing to try, I'm continuing to take action, I'm continuing to do it on my own, on my own, on my own. I'm going to make it work. God kept humbling me and to the point where I was like, I just need to surrender. Like I'm going to start listening. Like there was a direct message I remember that really spoke to me and made me start believing again. But then after that, like this happened, I was like, I have to just like fully surrender all of this to God. And then that's when doors started opening up, things started fixing. Just ultimately it was like I realized I could not build this business on my own. Otherwise, it would be
Mm.
me holding up a 10 million pound business, and it needed to be God that was holding it up. So it's been a long journey, to be honest, and a lot of tough times and things like really kind of came at the right time to get me to make a change and just kind of wake me up, honestly, because it was it was just out of like distance that I stopped believing, I think. Um, and yeah, so God used a lot of different ways to wake me up, such as that story. Um, I did a talk for my church about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, on money. And I'd like to think that this is 100% biblically sound. So if it's not, like, I hope nobody's going to come at me and call me a heretic. I'm always
I
trying
love
to
it.
trying to read the Bible better. But one of the things that I felt, um, and the saying that really makes me think about this is that, like, God's going to either show you the next step or He'll show you the top of the mountain, but God's not going to show you the entire path that He has for you in your entire life.
Come on.
It is like God has a path for you, but it is free will and your choices. But I think that for me personally, again, I may get some words thrown at me, but I think personally, like, God used my desire to make money to get me started. Like, my initial desire to start a business was to just quit my job, make enough money, go sit on a beach all day and do nothing. Now, I know that God did not have that to be my plan for me forever, but I
Yeah.
think that He allowed me to use that to get my initial inspiration. And
Mhm.
then as I took one step, okay, now I'm going to take another step. He starts using more and more and more. So when I first started this business, you know, the business ultimately, I would say, was my calling from God, but it wasn't. I didn't know what or why, and I also probably wouldn't have even called it a calling at that point. I just wanted to stop. I just wanted freedom from the world that I was in that I just didn't mesh with. But then as things happen, you just keep taking steps and steps in that direction. Like, God transformed my heart to where it is right now, where the ultimate vision is that I want to continue to impact people that are in opportunities and jobs that they don't like by being able to hire them and give them way better opportunity. Um, that's a huge passion of mine. And then at the same time, like, with the clients that we help, just showing them that, one, like, I openly talk about my faith in all aspects of the business, and this is why I think that I can call it a calling.
Yep.
Um, my pastor talked about callings the other day, and some people will call things a calling, but it has nothing to do with furthering the kingdom. And
Mm.
in my business, while it is about helping insurance agents and it is about, by helping them, they're able to help people with insurance and all that stuff. But truthfully, with this new message Josh and I have, it allows us to speak about my faith and Josh's faith way more. And that's really where I feel like ultimately God is calling us to do more. And it's to show and build up business owners that are faith based and grow the kingdom with financial, you know, financial means that we're able to generate with our businesses. I with my church, I never really felt drawn to serving in a way that was like with my time, and I want to be careful of that because I know that I probably covet my time more than money. So I think that there are areas that I will need to be obedient with my time, but I really think that, like, my gifting is to be able to give money and a lot of
Huge.
money. And so
It's
I think
awesome.
that, like, the more I can grow that in other people and also share the message that once you're making money, you don't sacrifice your faith in your family and being a parent, I think that that's really what it is for me. But that's not what it was when I first started. And so that's why I think just like lean into like whatever that is that may be God tugging on your heart right now, and
Mm.
then he'll grow and transform it as you continue.
Yeah, praise God. Well, that's amazing, amazing thing to end on, and I completely agree. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And I just want to commend you, like again, from a distance, getting to watch high school Justin to college Justin to even newly married Justin, and then now it's just it's what we live for, as people. And I think when God grow, now even in just in this place in our lives, I know that God's developed a passion in me to see other people along those areas of their journey, because once God's taken you through something, you have an incredible compassion for other people because you're able to notice, oh, they're kind of in this phase and they're working through this right now. And I think it's so beautiful that, for people like us who maybe we're a little rough around the edges and didn't have a straight and narrow path to some things, like it's a lot easier to not judge people when they're just haven't, they're on their journey, because and people need more role models like you in the world that are going to say, cool, this is where you're at, like, is that where you want to stay? Because there's more, and let me tell you my story. So I look forward to everybody that gets to listen to your story today, and thanks for being so vulnerable and so real.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for having me on here.
Yeah. Last thing, how can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you and with Insurance Advertising Masters, and just whatever you kind of want to end us with?
Yeah. So I would just say insuranceadvertisingmasters.com is the website. And then most of my non-insurance content gets directed towards Instagram. So Justin Thomas Falck. And then it gets repurposed for other places. So I would go follow me on Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching and listening, and we'll see y'all next week.